I climb because it's one of the few places my brain shuts up. I'm 46, a project manager by day. The kind of guy who can't enjoy a dinner out without mentally sorting tip percentages and checking the bank app just to be safe. My wife, Leah, calls it vigilance. I call it survival. We've got a kid in college, a kid with asthma, and a mortgage that feels like it grows when I'm not looking. Climbing is clean. Not, belay, move, breathe. Last fall, after my mom's hospital stay turned into a pile of bills and my company froze bonuses, I started taking extra shifts guiding weekend climbers. It wasn't glamorous, but it was cash. I told Leah it was for the experience. She didn't buy it. She saw me counting receipts at the kitchen counter at midnight. The day this started, I was alone on a weekday route in the San Juans. Not a famous wall, just a long ridge with old mining scars if you know where to look. The air was thin and cold enough to sting my nose. My fingers ached through gloves when I grabbed the rock. Halfway up a chimney, I found a narrow ledge hidden behind a flake. There was rusted tin wedged back there, like someone had shoved it out of sight. I figured it was trash. I hooked it with a nut tool and dragged it out. It wasn't tin. It was a small steel box, corroded but intact, about the size of a shoebox, sealed with wire. The weight made my stomach drop. It wasn't empty. I told myself it was old bolts, old ammo, something boring. Then I jostled it, and something inside clinked with a dense, unmistakable sound. I didn't open it on the mountain. That's what people say in stories to sound wise. But my real reason was fear. Fear of what I'd find, and fear of what it would mean. I tucked the box into my pack, anchored it with a sling so it wouldn't shift, and finished the route with my mouth dry and my heartbeat louder than the wind. Back at the trailhead, I sat on the tailgate of my Tacoma and stared at the box like it might accuse me. The steel was stamped with faint letters under the rust. U.S. something. My hands started shaking when I tried to read it. At home, Leah was making pasta. The house smelled like garlic and laundry detergent. Normal life. I stood in the doorway too long and she said, "You're home early." I said, "Weather turned." She looked at my pack. "You okay?" "I'm fine," I said, and my voice sounded calm, which is my default mask. I went straight to the garage, set the box on my workbench, and just stood there with my palms on the edge of the table. When I finally cut the wire with pliers, the metal snapped with a sharp, satisfying pop. The lid resisted, then opened with a gritty squeal. Inside were cloth sacks, stiff with age. I untied one. My throat tightened so hard it hurt. Gold. Not jewelry. Raw, heavy-looking nuggets and flakes in little glass vials, plus a stack of old $20 gold coins wrapped in paper. There was also a folded ledger, ink smeared but readable enough. Weights, dates, names, and this was the part that made my stomach turn. Owed to and paid to. My hands went numb. I could feel my pulse in my fingertips as I held a coin. It was cold, then warmed fast. Leah called from inside, "Dinner." I closed the lid and shoved the box under a rag like it was something shameful. I ate pasta with a smile that didn't reach my eyes, listening to my kids talk about school, while in my head I kept seeing that gold like a burning light. Denial isn't just refusing a truth. Sometimes it's pretending you can keep a truth compartmentalized. That night, after everyone went to bed, I weighed a few nuggets on my kitchen scale. I shouldn't have. Felt like crossing a line. But I needed numbers. I needed the comfort of quantifying. Rough math. If it was real gold, even a few pounds was tens of thousands. If the coins were genuine, potentially more. My mouth went cotton dry. I sat there in the glow of the stove light, hearing the house settle, and felt two versions of myself arguing. One said, "Report it, do it right." The other said, "You've been bleeding for years, and this is a tourniquet." I tried to research, found Gold Cache Mountain legal. The answers were messy. Federal land rules, abandoned property, mining claims, treasure trove laws varying by state. Nothing clean. Nothing that matched my need for certainty. The ledger bothered me more than the metal. It had names that looked like last names, some crossed out, some with notes like accident and hospital. One line, "Sheriff, keep quiet." My stomach dropped again. This wasn't just a miner's stash. It looked like money in motion. I didn't tell Leah. I told myself I was waiting until I had facts. In reality, I was auditioning versions of the truth that let me keep it. The next day, I called an old climbing buddy, Trent, who also flips vintage gear and knows a guy for everything. I didn't mention gold. I said, "If you found something valuable up in the mountains, who would you ask?" He laughed. "Depends. You talking antiques or felony?" "Just hypothetical." Trent got quiet. "Don't put hypotheticals on phones," he said. Then he added, "But I know a jeweler in Durango who buys raw. No paperwork if you don't want it." No paperwork. My throat tightened. It sounded like relief. It also sounded like a trap. Twist number one for me wasn't the gold. It was realizing my first outreach wasn't to a ranger or lawyer. It was to someone who could make it disappear. I met the jeweler Rafi in a strip mall store with bright lights and glass cases. He looked like a guy who'd seen every kind of desperation walk through his door. I brought one nugget in my pocket, wrapped in a tissue like it was a sick tooth. He weighed it, tested it with a small acid kit, then nodded once. "High purity," he said. "Where'd you get it?" "Estate." I lied and felt my face warm. Rafi didn't press. He just slid a notepad toward me and wrote a number. It was more money than I'd seen in a single place outside a mortgage document. "For that piece," he said. "Cash or wire?" My mouth went dry. My hands shook under the counter, so I clenched them into fists. I said, "If there was more, could you move it?" Rafi looked at me for a long beat. "I can buy what you bring," he said. "But big amounts I report. That's the law. And if it's from a mine with a claim, you could have problems." Problems. That word made my stomach twist. I left without selling. In the parking lot, my heart was hammering like I'd almost jumped from a ledge. The rational part of me was relieved. The desperate part felt like I'd thrown away oxygen. At home, Leah watched me unload groceries and said, "You're acting strange." "I'm tired," I said. She studied my face. "Are we in trouble?" I wanted to say no. I wanted to be the steady one. Instead I said, "We're fine," which was a lie in both directions. That night I did a spreadsheet, not of our budget, of the gold. I listed weights, estimated value, potential tax, potential legal. I told myself it was planning. It was fantasizing with numbers. And in that spreadsheet, I wrote a line that would haunt me later. "If we sell quietly, we can fix everything." I didn't understand then that quietly becomes its own kind of debt. A week later, my mom's assisted living called. They were raising rates. Another $620 a month. I stood in the hallway with the phone pressed to my ear, hearing my mother's voice in my head saying, "Don't worry about me," and knowing she meant the opposite. That night, Leah showed me the credit card statement with a red circle around the minimum payment. "We're treading water," she said quietly, "and you're gone every weekend chasing side money that barely helps." I went to the garage, opened the steel box, and stared at the gold like it was a cruel joke. My mouth tasted like metal. I told Leah, not everything, just that I'd found something climbing. I showed her one coin and one vial of flakes. Her eyes went wide, then narrow. "Is that real?" she whispered. "I had it tested," I said. "It's gold." Leah sat on the workbench stool like her legs stopped working. "How much?" "I don't know exactly," I said, which was another lie. "But enough to matter." Her hands started trembling. She put them on her thighs, pressing down hard. "We need to call someone," she said. "A lawyer, a ranger, someone." "And say what?" I asked. "Hey, I took this from a mountain ledge. Here you go." Leah stared at me. "You already took it." I didn't answer because yes, I had already crossed that line. She said, "If we keep it, that's stealing." I wanted to argue legal nuance. Instead, I heard myself say, "We have 2 kids and a drowning budget. Do you want to be righteous or solvent?" The words came out colder than I intended. Leah flinched. Shame crawled up my neck. Twist number 2 wasn't her reaction. It was mine, how quickly I used our financial fear as a weapon to justify myself. We fought in whispers for 3 days. Not shouting fights, tight, controlled, late-night arguments with the kids asleep and the TV on low to mask our voices. Leah wanted legal advice. I wanted speed. Every time she said, "Report it," I pictured a ranger taking the box and us getting a polite thank you and nothing else. Every time I said, "Sell," she pictured handcuffs. Then Trent texted, "Heard you might have some yellow. Got a buyer who pays over spot, no questions." Serious. I froze. I hadn't told Trent I had gold. Not directly. I'd asked hypotheticals. The realization made my stomach drop. "Did you tell anyone?" Leah asked when she saw my face. "No," I said too fast. Leah's eyes narrowed. "Then how does he know?" I didn't have an answer that didn't expose my own stupidity. I called. I'd hinted. I'd been careless because I wanted the option. That night, a truck I didn't recognize drove slowly past our house, then turned around at the end of the street and came back, headlights sweeping our living room. Leah noticed too. She shut the blinds with shaking hands. I installed a cheap camera system. I moved the gold box into a locked toolbox inside a locked closet like that meant anything. Trent called. "Don't panic," he said. "Word travels. But if you want to stay safe, you move it. You sell. You get out." Leah listened on speaker, face pale. When Trent said, "Safe," Leah mouthed, "Threat." After the call, Leah whispered, "This is bigger than money." But money was the engine. Money made information valuable. Money made my secret a commodity. Twist number 3. The danger wasn't the mountain. It was the marketplace I'd activated the moment I asked the wrong person. We met the buyer in a motel room off the highway because of course we did. I hate myself for writing that sentence, but that's the truth. I told myself it was the only way to control the risk. I wore my most boring clothes. I brought only part of the stash, 2 coins, a handful of nuggets, 1 vial, like rationing danger. The buyer was a clean-cut guy in his 30s with a laptop and a small scale. His name was Eli. Probably not. He didn't look like a criminal. That was what scared me most. He looked like someone who'd done this 100 times, efficiently. He offered an amount that made my ears ring. He also slid a paper across the bedspread. A simple purchase agreement with a line about seller warrants rightful ownership. My mouth went dry. "I can't sign that," I said. Eli smiled politely. "Then I can't buy." Leah's hand tightened on my arm. I felt her nails through my sleeve. I didn't want to sign either. I also didn't want to walk away. The motel air smelled like old smoke and cleaning chemicals. My heart pounded like I was on a crux move. I signed. My signature looked shaky, not like me. Shame burned behind my eyes. I told myself, it's just paper. It's just money. We'll be done. Eli counted cash into a duffel, thick, rubber-banded stacks. Seeing that much physical money made me dizzy. It didn't feel real. It felt like something that belonged to other people. We drove home with the duffel between Leah's feet, like it was a bomb. Neither of us spoke. My mouth stayed dry the whole way. That night, I opened my budget spreadsheet and started deleting debts. The relief hit like a drug. For a moment, I believed it was over. That was the false resolution. I can see it clearly now, like a sunny patch right before a cliff. 2 days later, the bank flagged our deposit when we tried to put some of it into our account. The teller smiled too brightly and said, "We just need to ask a few questions." A manager appeared. "Forms. Identification. Where did the cash come from? Why so much?" Leah's face went stiff. My palms sweated. I gave a rehearsed answer about selling personal property and watched the manager's eyes narrow slightly. They accepted the deposit but filed a report. I know they did because a week later my phone rang from a number labeled IRS. It wasn't the IRS at first. It was a financial crimes investigator from the state, asking routine questions about large cash activity. My stomach dropped. My mouth went cotton dry like the motel room again. Meanwhile, Trent texted again. "Buyer says your stuff is hot. Says it matches old missing shipment. You got more? He wants all." Hot. Missing shipment. My heart hammered. The ledger in the box suddenly mattered in a new way. Those names, sheriff, hospital, it hadn't been a miner's stash. It had been something someone hid for a reason. Leah looked at me and said, "You told me it was probably abandoned. You said it was just luck." "I didn't know," I said, and meant it. But ignorance doesn't protect you from consequences. I went back to the mountain by myself, sick with anxiety, thinking maybe I could put the rest back, pretend I'd never touched it. The hike felt longer than before. The air burned my lungs. My hands shook clipping into the first bolts. When I reached the ledge, I found fresh scuffs in the dirt, like someone had been there recently. A small scrap of blue glove in the crack. My stomach turned. Someone else knew. Someone else was looking. Twist number 4. The gold wasn't just found. It was connected to a theft history, and now my sale had made me part of a chain I didn't understand. Back home, Leah asked the question I'd been avoiding. "How much is left?" I opened the toolbox and showed her. The remaining gold looked smaller than before, but it was still a fortune. Enough to change our life. Enough to destroy it. Leah said, "We should stop. We should call a lawyer and tell the truth." "The truth is a felony," I snapped, then regretted the tone. Leah's eyes hardened. "So is lying on a warrant of ownership." I felt anger spike, not at her, but at myself for putting us here. I wanted to be the steady one. Instead, I'd become a man signing motel agreements. Then my brother called. He'd heard from my aunt that you guys came into money. My mouth went dry. "We didn't," I said too quickly. He laughed. "Sure." The rumors spread faster than I could plug. Neighbors asked if I'd gotten a new job. My son asked why the credit card was paid off. Leah looked at me like I was a stranger sometimes, like she was watching me justify myself in real time. I tried to contain it by moving money into different accounts. I opened a new savings account in only my name for tax purposes. Leah noticed and said, quietly, "Are you hiding money from me?" "No," I said, but my face felt hot, because yes, part of me was, not out of greed, out of panic, out of the instinct to control outcomes by controlling information. And that's when Leah told me her own secret. She'd already contacted a lawyer, not to report me, to protect herself if I got arrested. She said it with tears in her eyes, voice steady. "I have to think about the kids." My stomach dropped. Shame hit like a wave. I turned our marriage into a legal contingency plan. The investigator called again, more direct this time. He asked if I had any connection to historical mining theft reports from the region. He asked if I'd been in the San Juans recently. He asked if I knew anyone named Trent. My mouth went bone dry. I lied, calmly, professionally. I said I'd been hiking, not climbing. I said I didn't know Trent's last name. I said the cash was from selling collector items and offered to provide receipts. After I hung up, my hands shook so hard I had to sit on the kitchen floor. Leah stood over me, pale, and said, "This is going to end badly." I wanted to believe we could still steer it. I called Trent and told him to stop contacting me. He laughed. "Too late," he said. "You're on the radar now. Best move is finish the deal and disappear." Disappear? From what? Our kids? Our jobs? Our life? That night, I made another morally rotten choice. I agreed to sell the rest. Not because I wanted more money, because I wanted to close the loop. I wanted the stash gone, the risk gone, the evidence gone. I told myself, if it's gone, there's nothing to find. We met Eli again, this time in a parking garage. He offered less, citing risk premium. He also demanded the ledger. "It's part of the package," he said. "The ledger. The thing that might explain whose gold it was. The thing that might implicate people beyond me." My throat tightened. Giving it away felt like cutting the last tether to truth. I handed it over anyway. Guilt and relief came together so fast it made me nauseous. We used some money to pay my mom's bills and fix our car. We set aside a tax fund that felt laughably small against the potential consequences. Leah insisted we stop spending like we'd won. "Live normal," she said, voice tight. Don't draw attention. But normal was gone. I flinched every time my phone rang. I checked the cameras at night. I watched for unknown cars. My mouth was constantly dry, like my body was conserving water for a disaster. Then the lawsuit arrived, not criminal, civil. A mining company, through attorneys, alleging conversion of stolen property and seeking damages from unknown sellers and intermediaries. They didn't name me at first, but the dates and amounts matched the bank report timeframe. Our attorney said, "They're fishing, but if they trace the cash flow, they can name you." Leah stared at me and said, "So the money is poisoned?" "Yes," I whispered. The mining company's claim recontextualized everything. The scuffs on the ledge, Trent's hot comment, the buyer's urgency. This wasn't romantic treasure. It was stolen product that had sat hidden for years, and I'd become the convenient endpoint. Our lawyer advised settling if possible to avoid discovery. "Discovery will expose your whole financial life," he said. "They'll subpoena bank records, communications, everything, including my calls to Trent, my texts, my lies." Leah said quietly, "We should have reported it from the start." I didn't argue, couldn't. Denial was dead. Awareness had set in like a bruise. We tried to buy our way out. That's the ugly truth. Our attorney contacted the mining company's lawyers with an offer to settle anonymously. They countered with a demand for cooperation. Name your buyer, provide communications, hand over any records. In exchange, they'd drop some claims. They wanted Trent. They wanted Eli. They wanted the ledger. I didn't have the ledger anymore, and I didn't know Eli's real name. When I told our attorney that, he stared at me like I was watching myself drown and asking for a towel. He said, "Then you're the deepest pocket I can see. They'll squeeze you." Leah started sleeping with her phone under her pillow, like an alarm. She also opened her own bank account, just in case. I didn't protest. I deserved it. The investigators came to my office one afternoon. Not in a raid. Just two men in plain clothes asking to talk. My coworkers watched from cubicles like they were trying not to. I kept my voice calm and answered general questions. They asked about my climbing routes. They asked if I'd purchased gold recently. My stomach churned. I lied again. After they left, my boss called me into his office and said, quietly, "Is this going to affect your clearance?" Clearance. Career. Everything I'd built on being reliable. That night Leah said, "I want you to tell me everything, from the beginning. Every call, every lie." I did. Took hours. She listened without interrupting, eyes wet, face tight. When I finished, she said, "I don't know who you are." That sentence hurt more than any lawsuit. Trent vanished. His number disconnected. His social media deleted. Eli didn't respond to the burner number he'd used before. The buyer network evaporated like it had never existed. The mining company filed a new complaint naming John Doe sellers and listing our county records, effectively narrowing their target. Our attorney said it was only a matter of time before subpoenas reached our bank again. He advised preparing for potential criminal referral if the company pushed. Leah began quietly talking to a divorce attorney. She didn't threaten. She didn't weaponize it. She just started protecting herself, and I felt both betrayed and grateful. Betrayed because it hurt. Grateful because someone was finally acting like an adult in the room. I did something else shameful. I moved a chunk of the money into an account my name only, in a different bank, under the pretext of tax reserve. Leah found the confirmation email because I forgot to log out of my laptop. She held it up and said, voice flat, "So you're planning to leave us holding the fallout?" "No," I said, but it sounded weak, because part of me had been imagining escape routes. Bankruptcy, relocation, anything to stop the pressure. Leah said, "You didn't just find gold. You found an excuse to become selfish." I wanted to deny it. Couldn't. Anger flared then, at her for saying it, at me for making it true, at the universe for dangling relief and then charging interest. I slammed my fist into the counter hard enough to sting. Not screaming, just a single impact. Then I sat down and cried quietly, which I hadn't done in years, because there was nothing left to control. Guilt mixed with relief is a strange feeling. I was relieved the pretending was over. Guilty that it took this to stop. The criminal part never arrived like a movie. It came as letters and meetings and the slow tightening of options. The bank closed our accounts, citing risk. I had to explain to my kids why we were switching banks, why the credit card stopped working. I lied to them, half-truths about paperwork issues. The mining company offered one final settlement if I cooperated. Turn over everything I knew, agree to a payment plan that would take years, and sign a statement acknowledging wrongful conversion. If I didn't, they'd pursue full damages and refer for prosecution. I didn't have much to give, but I did have Trent's old address, old emails, and my own confession. My attorney said cooperation might reduce criminal risk. Leah said, quietly, "Do it." So I did. I signed. I provided what I had. I watched my own words get turned into exhibits. We paid a large settlement down payment and set up monthly payments that will probably outlast my climbing years. The money we'd thought would make us free became a different kind of chain. My employer put me on administrative leave while they reviewed integrity concerns. My mom asked why I sounded tired on the phone. I told her work was stressful. She said, "Don't worry about me." Again, and I almost laughed. Leah moved into the guest room, then into a small apartment near her work. She didn't take the kids away. She just stopped sharing a bed with a man who'd made her feel unsafe. I told myself I deserved it. I still do. I still climb, but it's not clean anymore. Every ledge feels like a test. Every hidden crack looks like it might contain something that will ruin me. The money is mostly gone. Taxes, legal fees, settlement payments, living costs while my income shrank. There's no rich ending. There's just a complicated aftermath with dates and amounts and reminders. My spreadsheets are thick with red cells again. Leah and I aren't divorced yet, but we're not together in any real sense. We talk about the kids, about schedules, about bills. Sometimes she looks at me with something like pity, and that's worse than anger. The quiet detail that won't leave me alone isn't the gold's shine or the weight of the coins. It's the sound the first nugget made when it clinked against glass in that box. Dense, final, like a door latch closing. Because that sound was the moment my life forked. And I chose the path that promised relief over the path that would have kept my hands clean. Now, when my fingers cramp on a hold and I shake them out in the cold air, I can feel that old dryness in my mouth again, like my body remembers. I keep thinking about the ledge, the fresh scuffs, the scrap of glove. Someone else reaching into the same crack, taking what they needed, leaving the mountain looking unchanged. I used to climb to escape money. Now money is up there with me, in every shadowed gap, waiting to be found.